Exalted higher. I am excited this week because we have a show that it's going to be about children. It's going to be about music. It's going to be about worship. And my guest with me this week is Pastor Michael Grove, who is the children's and family pastor of Calvary Church in Naperville. And I asked him to come on and let us talk about a couple things regarding our kids. You know, the Bible says that we're supposed to raise our children in the ways of the Lord. I mean, God commanded us to train up a child in the way he should go. And it says that when they get old, they're not going to depart from it. And I think that stays in their heart. It stays in their spirit. And we're blessed to have the church to come alongside us with every single thing that we need to do in leading our children to the Lord. So Pastor Michael, thank you so much for joining us this week.
It's so good to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Now, you're like a kid at heart. I just watching the things that you do in ministry, it just completely blows me away, because you lead the children, you direct the children, you teach the children, you have fun with the children, and you make the Bible come alive to your children, to the children. So what I want to ask you is, what are some of the things that you do to make worship interesting for children? How do you get them engaged?
That's a great question. So there's so many different things. And I think the first thing I want to be able to say, you know, Sybil, you had mentioned Proverbs 22:6 there, that train up a child in the way they should go. When they're older, they will not depart from it. For me, that word train is the most important part of that sentence. And if you think about a pair of training wheels, when do training wheels actually do something of value? When they're actually attached to the bicycle. They don't do any value if they're in the garage on the shelf. They have to actually be physically attached to the bike in order for it to work.
Right.
To me, worship's the same way. When we train a child, it's them physically seeing and understanding what worship looks like from us, the adults. We have to lead the way in that. There's something beautiful inside of worship that can't be taught or talked about, has to be shown to kids. And so for me, the number one important thing for us to remember, us as adults, we have to be leading the way. We have to be the ones to show them without anything hindering us. We have to go after the Lord with all of our heart when we worship. When they see that, it starts to spur something inside of them. It starts to open something up. And I feel the same way about the scriptures, about the stories in the Bible. If I believe them to be true, which I do, then they have to be the most important thing for me to be able to understand. There's a reason why we have the scriptures. There's the story of this amazing God who loves us, who wanted nothing more than relationship with us. Yet we were drawn to the chaos and the confusion and the darkness. And so he created a way to reconcile that. That's the story of the Bible. And if I can help kids, whether that be through drama, whether that be through drawing or singing or video, whatever it might be, my goal is to help illuminate what that story looks like so that they get a good picture of the God we serve. To me, that's the most important thing we can do from one generation to the next. It's all of our job is to help our kids understand these things. And I will do whatever it takes to see that happen for them.
So you think it's a great idea, obviously, as parents, to be a model for our children. And I think it's important for our children, like you said, to be in the worship service with the adults from time to time so that they can see how we enter in and we engage in that relationship with the Lord. How critical is it, though, in this day and age for the music that we teach our children about Christ, to keep them in the church, to keep them in that relationship with the Lord? There's a lot of music out there. There's a lot of music that takes your focus away from our walk with the Lord. But how is important? I mean, is it critical?
Oh, it's so critical. And I would even caution, I think sometimes we think because a Christian artist sings a song that it's a great Christian song for us. We saw a wave of songs come out, especially the last decade or so, that when you look at the theology behind them, I don't know that they help our kids understand God or how to worship him. And they're really great songs. They're really fun to listen to. And the bands and the teams that sing those are great people. I really want to caution and slow down, like the look at what does it look like for the song's theology? What is it saying? Because what I've seen in our young adults and in our teens as they grow up and they know these songs that we sang and we sang this and we sang this, yet they have no idea why that was an important thing to sing or what we were even talking about. It causes so much confusion and question in them. And this feeling of you embedded this song into my brain and I don't even know what it means. My heart and my goal, every song we sing with our kids has a reason why we're singing it, that we're able to help them understand what are these lyrics talking about and why is that important? Because music is such a huge avenue to understanding God. It's a huge avenue. Do you know they say that worship itself has all of the emotions tied inside of it? There's not a whole lot of things we do as a human, as mankind, that have all those emotions in one spot the way worship does. And it's so vital to opening up the inner self, to being able to express to the Lord, to be able to hear from the Lord, that I want to get it right with our kids. I want to make sure they hear songs that lead them to the Lord, that help them understand this life-giving God that we serve. And so for me, that's where it starts. And that doesn't just start at church. That starts everywhere. That starts at home. So when I'm driving and I'm listening to music, I know for sure I want my kids hearing something that's going to inspire their day, that's going to help them understand who God is. So I'm not just waiting for them to come to church to hear those things. I want that to be part of our lifestyle. I want them to be part of who we are. And so for parents, it's so important that we model that and bring that to our kids and help them explore what that looks like and means and understand it.
Amen. That's beautiful. I remember as a younger person, the genre of music that I grew up with, the contemporary Christian field of music, there were a lot of songs that were out. There were what we call crossover songs. So everybody was singing it. And one in particular was Oh Happy Day. Everybody sang Oh Happy Day. I don't care what radio station you turn to, everybody was singing Oh Happy Day. And there are a lot of songs today that, like you were saying, you really need to understand the story and the lyrics that are behind that. Even Pastor Marty had said the other day, a lot of the songs that are out there they have lyrics that really are teaching kids the wrong things. And so we do need to be careful. I agree with you on that. Now, I know that from time to time you minister to the adult service. You're not just the children's pastor, although you guys have a lot of fun in there. You have done some amazing demonstrations in your messages to the adult service that makes it so clear what your message is. And one of the analogies you used was you had water on the stage. I think it was water, and you had something in the water and you dumped something in it that was dirty and you put it over here and you made it clean. Those type of demonstrations you use for the children as well. And a lot of things you do is with art. So I do want to get into some of the artistic things that you do. Give us some examples of maybe a couple of things that you've done using art. I mean, I can give you one that I've seen, but give me some. Give us some.
So one of my favorite demonstrations for the kids is I take out a dry erase board and I will draw just a tree, some flowers, and talk about the Garden of Eden inside of it. And then I take out, without them noticing, I change the markers, a permanent marker, and I'll write the word sin right over the middle of all of it. And then talk about how all of the whole picture just got ruined, didn't it? Because I basically try to cover as much of it as I can. And as I talk about how I got ruined by that word sin, then I say, what if we were just to erase it and get rid of it? Well, when I erase the whole picture, the only thing that's left then is the permanent marker, sin. And so then as I talk about how sin doesn't just go away, it's not something that just disappears. There's effects to it. There's a cost to it. Then I'll take out another dry erase marker, a red one. And if you don't know this, to get rid of permanent marker off a dry erase board, all you got to do is take another dry erase marker over it, color it all in, and then it erases right off. And so I'll take the red and I'll draw a cross with the word sin right in the middle of it, color the whole thing in, and then when I erase it, the word's gone too. And it's just a really clear demonstration of the price that had to be paid cost something, and Jesus paid that price. And when they watch that, you should see their faces light up because they get it. They're like, oh, that sin couldn't go away unless. And so for me, like the arts are so vital to that, and it's expressive. It's part of who I am as a person, to be able to worship the Lord and to use those giftings to honor him. Also, I love to paint. I was
going to get to that.
Yeah, just did one for Good Friday for our adult service. And it was just a simple image of what we would look at and say that represents Jesus in the middle of a cross. Love to do those type of things because people's eye and their mind connected together are drawn to it, and they hear whatever's being said, and it says something louder to them. So to me, our kids, man, they gotta have that type of stuff. They're in such a visual world where everything's so fast paced and bright and fun. We got to find ways to do that when we talk about the most important story there is. That's the Bible.
And when they see a visual, that's something that they can remember and they can take with them. It'll always be with them. And you did for, you actually are the producer and the host of a show called the Calvary Kids Show. And in that, during the COVID pandemic, you did a video or a part of it called Pandemic Parenting or Parenting in a Pandemic. So talk about the illustration that you used there.
So yeah, I did something called Pandemic Parenting, and it's just geared to help parents understand what it looks like to parent their children in the middle of a larger pandemic than just maybe COVID-19. It's more talking about where our kids are at today, the pandemic, how it's affected them, and what we need to do as parents. And so I took clay, and I had one that has sat out for several days, I think it was, that was just hard as can be. And then one that was very pliable. And the whole illustration is this: our kids, we can do something to fashion and form them now. We can invest in them, which is really easy. It's like working with soft clay. Or we can wait till they get older to try to figure out how to help them grow, help them learn. That becomes a lot more difficult. In fact, I need a hammer and a chisel, or I need some saws or other materials if I'm going to wait until that clay gets out and gets hardened. So for us as parents, if we can look at our kids from every stage that they're at and think, wow, they're actually pliable right now. I can do something to help shape and mold them, and not wait until they become hardened, or not wait until they walk away from the church or get out of the home and are trying to make their own decisions the wrong way. If I can shape and mold them now, I want to do whatever that takes, because it's so much easier and so much more fruitful to do it now instead of reactively doing it later. So I want to be proactive as a parent or as a pastor, as a leader. I want to proactively lead this generation so that I'm not reactively trying to correct the generation later. Hey parents, welcome to this segment that's just for you called Pandemic Parenting. This is the conversation where we talk about what it looks like to parent in a pandemic culture. Now, I understand that right now, everything seems to be up in the air. Everything is so crazy, isn't it? I mean, think about it. You're working hard, you're trying to get home and maintain some sort of home life, helping with homework, helping with online schooling. I mean, you're basically homeschool parenting and trying to keep your sanity in the middle of it. I don't know about you, but it has been frustrating, hasn't it? I want this to be a safe place where we can admit this is what's happening right now and be able to say, but I'm going to be okay, as well as encourage each other and learn how we can be better parents in the middle of this. Over the years, generations have been defined by large-scale events throughout society. In fact, these events have shaped and molded them and defined them, even creating stereotypes that are later talked about regarding that generation.
God laid on my heart heavy that this generation right now, growing up in the middle of this pandemic, are being shaped and molded by a culture of fear and anxiety and all the things that this pandemic brings. I mean, think about it. This generation has lost social interaction. They've now seen the screen of Zoom and Google Classroom more than they have one-on-one interaction and conversation. This pandemic is shaping and molding them more than we understand. But what if you and I could change that? What if instead of culture shaping them, us as parents could encourage them and shape them and mold them the way God wanted them to grow? I have this clay beside me that is soft and pliable right this moment. Now, if I were to leave this out for a long time, do you know what would happen to it? It would become hardened and hard to use. In fact, if I left it out long enough for it to completely harden, the only way to change it would be with a chisel or a hammer or a knife of some sort. But right now, while it's soft and pliable, do you know the only thing I really need to do is I can work it and change it and mold it right here with my own hands. What if we helped our kids before they got so hardened and so used to life that they needed a chisel to peel the pieces off? What if we can shape and mold them right now while they're still soft and pliable? Now, this can sound really difficult and overwhelming. I mean, we just talked about the fact that we're trying to maintain life and sanity while also help our kids get everything accomplished. But that's what this segment is about. This segment is about helping you have simple ways, simple strategies that you can take in order to help your kids succeed in the middle of this pandemic culture. So here is the first simple way that we can help our kids in this time. You ready for this? Listen. No, I don't mean listen to me. I mean, that's the simple way. That's the step right now that you and I can take to help them grow. Listen to them. I mean, think about it. I don't know how your home works, but right now my home is so full of everything going on and things to do that there's more telling than there is hearing. We're constantly telling our kids to finish their homework. We're telling them to get things together and get done instead of listening to where they're at. So what if we created a simple step that we can just listen to our students, listen to our kids? Think about where our kids and our students have been over this past year. They've had to learn with screens, not having one-on-one interaction with their teachers. I talked to a student this weekend who had to do labs from home, labs that were designed for college courses to be done in person with other people with the help and encouragement of a professor. They're doing in a modified system online from home. Think about how difficult that is for them. And in this season, what they need the most is somebody that will hear them, somebody that will listen to them and encourage them that it's gonna be okay. So what can we do? I mean, I just said this is so crazy for us. How can we easily do this? I got an idea for you. You ready for this? What if we took one day every week where we just sat down as a family, we cleared all the homework, all the projects, all the computers off the dining room table, and we had a meal together? I know it sounds old-fashioned, right? It sounds like something from the old days, but what if our kids need that right this moment? What if they just need somebody to ask them, how are you doing with this? How are things going? And we took the time to stop and listen and encourage them and remind them it's gonna be okay. You and I have this awesome opportunity of helping the next generation have every opportunity possible to succeed. So let's give them this one simple thing of letting them be heard. Give them an outlet to talk. Here's what it might look like in my home. Sunday after church, when everybody's kind of winding down, what a great opportunity to sit down and have a meal together and just be able to find out where everybody's at. Before this week starts with school and work and everything else that's going to go crazy, what if I just stopped on Sunday and heard them, asked them how they're doing, which is going to help shape and mold them. You see, this one simple step of listening can help shape and mold an entire generation as they navigate through this very defining moment in history.
change the course a little bit. I want to ask you a few things about, and it's dealing with art. We're involved in the Assemblies of God fine arts program with our young folks, and most people that think of fine arts, they think about music, but you have a division in that fine arts competition that's dealing with actual art. So can you just talk a little bit about maybe some of the students and what kind of creativity has been birthed out of what they're doing in that competition?
Yeah, so there's actually several different layers to that as well. I mean, we have writing, we have drawing, we have painting, we have photography. I think the goal of fine arts is to help everybody understand we've been given a piece of who God is. We've been given a picture of what he looks like. If we were to take everybody's gifts, talents, and abilities and throw them into one big pile, I do believe we'd have a better picture of God than we've ever seen, because we just have a small part that we steward that helps us express love to him and show people who he is. And I'm so thankful that I get the chance to work in the arts inside of that, because I think it's such an expressive way to represent Christ. And so whether that be, we have people that do photography, and it's so fun to watch a young person think through, I took this picture and here's how it demonstrates who God is. Or I took this picture and here's why the eye is drawn to it. Or to watch a kid take charcoal and think they're just drawing a person, and help them understand, while they're looking at the fine details of who a person is or what makes them who they are, for them to be able to identify, this is God's design. This is something that he made. It's so fun to watch that come alive for them. I love the writing part of it too. You know, when you see some of these students write a poem or a short story or even a sermon to express God, to express them inside of this world and how that relates to God, they're getting it. They're understanding through the arts what their purpose is, what it looks like to be part of this bigger kingdom of bringing the kingdom of heaven here onto this earth. It's just exciting because those kids and those students get so excited, and they see something inside of them that they can use to bring beauty and to bring this picture of God. And it's a wonderful thing. I love being part of that.
And now because you're so creative and you're so artistic, where did you learn all of that? Did you go to school for some of the stuff you do on Coach? And you know what I'm going to ask you about? I'm going to go to the cafe and to that big piece of artwork that was on. They didn't take it down yet, did they?
They didn't. Maybe we could put it up or something.
Let's talk about that, because it is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen. But where did you get your artistic abilities from? Did you go to school for that?
Yeah, so I all throughout high school, I knew I loved art. And so back when I was younger, which was a while ago, you didn't have to take like a foreign language. You could actually take arts in replacement for those. And so I never took a language. In fact, my senior year, I took 2 art classes, both semesters. I just have always been drawn to art. And then my first year out of high school, went to Columbia College for a year and a half and studied art. But I knew from the age of, in 8th grade, I knew I was called to ministry. And so while I was at art school, it's funny, things didn't work the way they were supposed to. And that's what happens when you don't follow God's will. Nothing works right. And so I ended up leaving it and pursuing ministry. But it was kind of a weird thing, because I remember talking to God and saying, hey, if you'll let me use my art, I'll do whatever you want. And it was almost like God said to me, how about you do whatever I want and I'll let you use your art.
That's how he says it. That's how he does it.
Right. And so ever since then, I've just said, I will use any piece of who I am, any gift, talent, and ability to honor God, because that's what I desire to do. And he's given me those pieces so that I can do it. And so I want to use those. I want to steward those in a way that blesses the Lord and blesses his name.
And you use pieces of just about anything in your art. So now talk about that piece that's hanging in the cafe at the church.
Yeah, so I love mixed medium. That's one of my favorites to put together, because you can take pieces of anything and make them into a story. We have a piece in our coffee shop that has a little wooden representation of Calvary on one side, has the city of Chicago across from it in wood also. Got some copper in the background and an actual tree branch growing up with musical pages behind it, and then also Bible pages behind it. My goal for this piece was to be able to express, we as Calvary Church have been given this awesome opportunity. And that's to bring this beautiful story of the scriptures to life in a way that affects not just us, but our community, extending farther out into the city and then into the rest of the world. So it's very intentional pieces that I've placed into this. And Sybil, you might not even know some of this. For instance, I have on the pages that are visible, it's one of my passions is to see women in leadership and to see us continue to grow in that. So I have numerous pages that have women leaders of the Bible represented as the front pieces, because I want us to celebrate that as a church. I want us to continue to celebrate as we allow God to use and activate gifts inside of women. I also have very specific worship passages right in the front and center. In fact, right behind the main tree is a worship passage, because I do believe worship is what brings that story of God to life for people. It's what we were designed to do, is to honor God through worship. In fact, here's a fun thing. Do you know how many times the Bible talks about worship? It also talks about God singing his praises over us. And I love that, Zephaniah 3:17. It says that God is mighty to save. He's able to do it. And he sings his praises over you. Well, why would he do that? Because his praise brings life to us. It brings life to everybody that hears it. When the angels announce Jesus, what do? They burst into song. Holy, holy, holy. I mean, there's so much throughout scriptures that talk about this song of who God is and the beauty of the worship inside of it and how people hear that and it transforms them. So I put that right in the middle where this tree is growing, because I believe the life of Calvary, the life of God's people, comes through that worship. It extends out like the branches all across the world, the map, the globe. And so my heart was, and then there's coffee grounds at the bottom of this piece, because our coffee shop is sponsoring a mission that's doing that in Calcutta, India. And so my heart was that this would be a representation of what it looks like to honor and worship God and to bring his name everywhere through that praise, and to fight for people, to love people, and to be the church.
Amen. It is absolutely a beautiful piece, and everything that you have done, I believe, is God ordained and is anointed of the Lord to tell the stories that you've told. Thank you so much for being a part of this particular show, Pastor Michael. I so much appreciate you. I appreciate your ministry to our kids, our church of the future. And anybody wants some information about who this guy is and what's going on at Calvary, you can go to calvarynaperville.org for more information, or you can just tune in to Total Living Network on Saturday mornings and watch the Calvary Kids Show. Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.